Welcome to the first session of the Excellence Talks. So it's a new initiative that we started together with Christian Forstner. And this actually aimed to have a platform to be able to exchange the information, knowledge within the business excellence community, all the information that could be together that we can share and we can inspire together and then learn from each other. Therefore, that today that we will start this first session together with our guest speaker. And I would like to start for introduction of Dr. Christian Forstner by himself. Could you please introduce yourself, Christian?
Hey, Murat, another great creative idea in these difficult times to share some interesting insights with a wider community. I'm Christian Forstner. I am a nuclear physicist by training. And while I was still working for Siemens, I started my own business about 20 years ago. And now I'm helping organizations around the world to improve. And one of the big topics of this work is sustainability. This is the reason also why we've chosen this topic as the first one for our first broadcast today. Murat?
Thank you, Christian. I'm Murat Aydin, working at GC Europe. It's a Japanese company. I'm General Manager of Quality Assurance and Business Excellence. I work almost 10 years in the company, and the companies will be celebrating next year the 100 years also. So it's very important also for next year for us. And I know Christian from the business excellence community that also we have been working together also in the past and with the EFQM excellence model implementation. And also important to note that 1 year ago, GC Europe achieved the highest level in the EFQM Global Excellence Award. We achieved the Global Excellence Award in 2019. So.
And isn't it wonderful, Murat, that during all those years of working together, we developed a friendship? And this also shows that you can only really be successful in excellence if you join forces, you cooperate, and this is much more than a customer-supplier relationship, right?
Exactly. All stakeholders, that's what we have. Partners and how we can be partners together. And welcome, Alexander, to our very first talks we are organizing about the sustainability. And I would like to kindly request your introduction of yourself.
Yes, of course. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm proud to be your first speaker in this great new format. So you did the right choice to choose sustainability. And I like to give a short introduction on myself. My name is Alexander Herzner. I have several roles. My first role is I'm the sustainability coordinator and manager of the University of Applied Sciences in Amberg-Weiden, but also I give lectures at several universities in Germany about controlling strategic management, business excellence, and sustainability. And also I'm a business consultant or business analyst, or I like the description excellence ambassador because I live the excellent spirit connected to sustainability. And these are my special fields. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander.
Thank
you. And again, we also know each other for quite a long time. And what I admire most of Alexander is his creative spirit in all the small little things that you do to support the big things. You have an uncountable number of small projects, from fair chocolate to I don't know, maybe you share with us some more examples. And that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christian.
Thank you very much.
And before we introduce, or before we ask you, Alexander, to share with us your insights for a couple of minutes, maybe a few more words on why we've chosen this topic. Secretary General Antonio Guterres from the United Nations just recently said that the current crisis, as bad as it may be, offers a fantastic opportunity for human family, he says, to act in solidarity and turn this crisis into something better. And to prevent the crisis from derailing sustainable development efforts, okay? From sacrificing those sustainability development efforts just to push economy. And to illustrate how important that is, and that this spirit involves all types of business, let me just give you a short example of the fashion industry. As people sit at home, men and women alike, there is no need for clothes anymore, fashion clothes. I mean, as you sit at home, you don't need to buy. So the fashion industry finds an enormous cash flow problem right now. They are in trouble. But they also say that this offers the whole sector, which is responsible for about 10% of annual global carbon emissions, the fashion industry, a fantastic chance and opportunity to improve the way they do fashion. And two keywords here are just recycling and reinventing. And the question is if the current model of fast fashion is really sustainable. The chief executive of the British Fashion Council is quoted to say, now is the time to think about all that. And with this example, maybe, Alexander, we ask you to present the topic in a broad spectrum to us.
Yes, a broad and a very deep spectrum, but I have only 10 minutes, as you said. The slide 4. So you have to choose. I have chosen a heaven background for today's topic because you see the impact of human beings on environment, and you have to choose maybe your holidays and vacation in mind for that year. You can visit Tikopia or you can visit the Easter Islands. And later on, I will give you a little hint what you have to choose best. And you, of course, can make your decision already right now. So as Christian said, the impact of business in several fields is not to neglect, because you see, for example, here the planetary boundaries, and we have a lot of areas of planetary boundaries where you can see a huge human impact on, not only on the climate crisis, as Christian said, for example, the fashion company has a huge impact on carbon emissions, but also you have the nitrogen cycle, you have a biodiversity loss. So you have a lot of topics which are interconnected on sustainability, and you have to think about how you can run your business not to harm such areas. And of course, we see in details, for example, of the ozone depletion, that the decisions we made have, of course, benefits on the key performance indicators like ozone or CO2. For example, you see now the decrease of carbon emissions right now. So we have the impact and we see what we can do and what are the effects of the decisions. You see here some Earth system trends, and you see in the bullet point line that is 90-15. In each of these KPIs, a decrease of human impact. So we see that the fast growing capitalism, the pure focus on economic growth, has a negative impact on all these 12 indicators. And these are not, of course, every indicators, that's just a little bit output. So there's a lot of research going on right now to have the latest overview, what is the status quo of our planet. And of course, in this, the discussion of sustainability is not new. It's going back to the 18th century with Karl von Karajan and the sustainable forestry. You have in science talks of business ethics like Adam Smith. He was a moral philosopher, and we all know him just for economic, but he was a moral philosophics. And you see there's a lot of discussion just right now with the Millennium Development Goals, the UNESCO Education for Sustainable Development. So we have a broad range of sustainability initiatives just right now with the Sustainable Development Goals. And for our guests, if you have to connect sustainability and business excellence, you have to focus on the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations. And let me give you some impacts why you should. There are a huge field and a huge area for innovation. And after that crisis, you have to think about what are the new markets where you can interact with, or where you can sell your products, and what kind of products you can offer right now, because we see that a lot of business models are not sustainable right now. And you have to run through different stages. The first, of course, and this is just focused on ecological aspects, for example, exceeding ecological standards, shaping the value chain sustainably, developing eco-friendly products, implementing business models. So you see how far you have to move just to come to the fifth stage for creating new markets. So you see how much homework you have to do in an organization just to be sustainable. But also you can imagine what are the chances in future if you have a sustainable economy and you have creating new markets where you are the first mover and you have the first mover advantage. So I guess everyone who is a little bit into accounting can imagine what opportunities of sustainability would be. As I mentioned, this is just for ecological aspects. Of course, we have sustainability in a more broader range. So we have to think about, of course, the economics and of course, all the social aspects. And that's the 3 dimensions of sustainability also mentioned in the 17 SDGs, where you see the social, no poverty, zero hunger, good health, gender equality, but also the environment, climate action, life below water, life on land, as of course economics, for example, decent work and economic growth, sustainable cities, responsible consumption, production. Christian, you mentioned first sessions or the chocolate or coffee. So the fair trade initiatives, fair wages, etc. So you see all the connections of 17 goals going into hand in hand. And so this is your area for innovation, your area, how your products, how your services, how your markets can count to sustainability and create a positive impact. And then we have to think on a moral perspective, how you can do that. And this, for example, I recommend the 4 areas of Global Compact. The Global Compact is also a UN initiative. It's a broader network for organizations and companies, commonly profit organizations, but also non-for-profit organizations are members, of course. So you have 10 principles: human rights, labor conditions, environment and governance, anti-corruption and such issues, where you can operate with. So you identify your business opportunities in the SDGs, for example, for industry, innovation and infrastructure. And then you have to think about how you can operate, and then you operate responsible in line with the Global Compact principles. So this would be the first step for business excellence connected to sustainability in future. And we have to reorganize economic systems right now, as they are not working any longer after that crisis, I'm sure. So, of course, you see a lot of discussions here. For example, the Green Marshall Plan of the EU. And if such initiatives are starting, organizations have to be ready. And this is the reception and the maybe how they can. Because just right now, if organizations were creative and they develop new products for consumption, I have here some examples how they did. That is a single packed bananas, pulled bananas packed in plastic bags, also oryx or hard-boiled eggs. So this is the top creativity of our business right now. And I'm wondering if that's all human beings are able to do. And you and I are sure that's not. So there's the highly recommendation if you want to be successful, and we have empirical evidence that organizations in the long term are more successful if they are sustainable, if they are considering moral values. So how to implement that? This is one of the biggest and hardest questions to answer. That's why several standards are existing. For example, the ISO or the UN Global Compact, the OECD guidelines for multinational companies, but they don't connect the different dimensions you have to consider. Of course, you have to consider the sustainability dimension, governance, environment, social, but you need to translate it into a management dimension. So you have to load your strategies with normative values. You need strategies for innovation, you need strategies and processes for product development, for creating new markets, of course. So all we are discussing before, you need strategies and processes for, and of course you have to live that. So you need the normative aspects as well. And of course, if you are talking about business excellence, you have to measure the effectiveness. So is there really impact, a positive impact on societies, or on stakeholders' expectations? So you need the effectiveness as management dimension as well. And of course, if you are talking about excellence, you have to measure and you have to improve. And you can improve only if you know what is your current status. So you need a maturity level or a pointing scale or what else. And then you have to combine all these aspects. And that's the hardest challenge right now. And Christian, with your support, we have started for several years a research project, and this is the result, that we found a model based on EFQM principles, how to combine all these details, that organizations are able in future to create new markets, to create new products, to have the answers on stakeholders' expectations by being in line with social standards, with human rights, with ecological standards, and of course with the law. So you see how complex sustainability is, just to finish in, yes, 5 or 10 minutes you gave me. So I hope that wasn't too fast.
That was in fact very impressive, Alexander, and thank you very much for giving us this broad picture and focusing on key aspects. And if I try to summarize your fantastic presentation, is it true, Alexander, that sustainability and business success can go hand in hand?
Yes. So there are several empirical studies where they are measuring the long-term success, not the short-term success. And I just have a research project now in South Germany, where we are collecting the best practice examples of corporate social responsibility. And these are, of course, the family-owned businesses on a huge number, of course. So you see a great impact on the long-term orientation, that they have to consider social issues. Right now, we have an organization they are thinking about for quitting employees, of course, right now in the situation, but they don't, because one of the employees is a single mom with 2 kids, and the CEO said it would be false and the wrong way to make that decision. So we are talking together how we can work together in future, not quitting you. So there are a real stakeholder discussion on face-to-face to consider that aspect. And you can imagine in this example, if the mom doesn't lose her job, she is motivated, she's committed to the organization. So she will, of course, be doing the best for the organization, and doing the best for an organization to see that commitment. This is then the basic principle for long-term success.
And that's another example.
One of them.
Yeah, another example how small things matter, and how small decisions, in this case, just to save the professional life of a single mom, adds the whole picture that overall profit and sustainability can go hand in hand, and they don't necessarily work against each other. Murat, What is your first impression of this presentation?
First of all, it was really impressive that you could explain in 10 minutes. Thank you, Alexander, for the nice overview presentation. And especially this time, as we know, we all believe that the world is changing because of this COVID situation, and there is an uncertainty also in many aspects on the business. And there is always that we believe that the sustainability will help. And I want to understand actually from Alexander's point of view, how do you see that the sustainable development goals or sustainability initiatives can help us in the future to overcome the current crisis from your point of view, especially maybe from businesses that we can maybe say?
Yeah. So first of all, the SDGs are very complex because you have to consider that you have several sub-goals for each of the 17 goals. So there are more than 190 goals you have to fulfill. So you see there's a lot of complexity if an organization wants to pay in for each single goals. So that's the great and huge challenge for organizations, how they can implement the SDGs in their day-to-day business. And that's why I consider the principles like OECD guidelines or UN Global Compact, but I like the Global Compact because it's very easy to understand, even for small and medium-sized organizations, because they don't have the resources to implement an ISO standard on which is very complex and needs a lot of resources. So the Global Compact is an easy step to go in. And then you have to consider in your strategies or in your products, what is the positive or negative impact on society? What are the consequences on environment? And then your processes have to be development in such way that you can decrease the negative impact or that you can increase the positive impact. And that's how organizations can pay into the SDGs. So by the way, the SDGs is just an agenda and targets for 2030. So now we have 2020, so we have 10 years going, and we are not knowing what's going beyond, what are the targets, but I guess they will be very similar connected to that, because the SDGs are not full range, but a very good basic to start from.
So yes.
Yeah.
Continue, please.
And then you have consider, for example, you ask for crisis like we have right now, you see what is the human impact and what are the dependencies on pure economic growth. So if we have the future understanding on just economic growth as we did the last years, you see how fragile our societies are, our ecosystems are. And there are several research right now that the crisis has human impact, because or you have a loss of biodiversity. So this is a good basic for viruses as we had right now, where they can spread. So it's a very fragile ecosystem where we are interacting. So you have to be careful. What are the consequences of your businesses?
Thanks to your question, Murat, and your answer, Alexander, I think we have discovered another principle, that solutions that work need to be simple. And you remember this three-dimensional presentation of this assessment that you have developed. I think that's exactly what organizations need, small and big ones. Not the big complex systems, since nobody would use them, but the small ones that show that they are effective.
And I want to ask the question, as you know, that business excellence models that we have, like EFKM excellence model, and I know that also Christian has developed a simplified model of excellence also. How we can integrate this with the sustainable development models?
Maybe I try a first answer and then I give the word to you, Alexander, since part of this we have developed together, I think, and I'm grateful for that. Yeah. I think what you have done is to integrate excellence and sustainability in one model, right?
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
So the way right now is, of course, that EFQM or other business models are mentioning global compact issues or, of course, sustainability. So let's think about the old model from 2030. Sustainability was one of the fundamental concepts, but they are not going hand in hand. So you need a business model plus sustainability. And our approach, or my approach, is to integrate sustainability into an excellence model. So sustainability is not just a right add-on, but you have to integrate these issues, how you do the processes, how you are interacting with stakeholders. So it's have to be the basic principles at all. So, well, let me talk about or paint the picture that sustainability is the fundamental concept for an excellence model. Maybe that would be the best description.
Indeed.
You, Murat, your organization GC, which was based in Japan, or is still based in Japan, but it's now working around the globe, and you are responsible for excellence in the European region, which has been extremely successful. Do you think that these aspects of sustainability, or a stronger focus even on these aspects of sustainability, could help GC to further improve their business? And I'm saying business.
Yes, for sure. First of all, that is GC is a family-owned company, so it's a value-driven company. And one of our philosophy, that actually what we called in Japanese semui, and we can translate as empathy, and like a stakeholder expectation, how we can think from the other person perspective. This is actually the shaping the relationship of our all stakeholders, with our associates, with our supplier, with our customer, then create the value-driven relationships within our ecosystem. And there, as you said, also that we have been successfully implemented in GC, and then we have been successfully implemented this value in the way of sustainability to our daily work. And there actually that, of course, with the current COVID crisis also, this is actually getting very important. And this actually we have been seeing that significant distinguished factor of GC in the business also. So therefore is very important to have this sustainable thinking, which is integrated the company culture and with the company processes that we have seen.
And that would mean that GC, which is now leading excellence around the world, I mean, just achieving the Global Excellence Award is a wonderful and unique evidence for that. And so GC could be moving into leading sustainability around the world.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Yes, really.
And if we just briefly think about other organizations that come to mind, I think we find uncountable numbers of small businesses, big businesses, non-for-profit organizations that could jump on that train, right?
Of course.
Alexander.
Yes, of course. And they should, because as I connected, we will have a change in economic systems as we see in this crisis. And a lot of businesses with not sustainable business models have a real crisis. For example, all the airplanes niches, you see how they are not sustainable, or how they try to be sustainable because it's very hard. They need a lot of innovation on process level, but also on product level and for the services. So this is the area of innovation. And if the circumstances will not change in future, because I guess we have climate change, you see it all around. If you have open eyes, there is no alternative to sustainability. And an organization who wants to be excellence has two options: to be sustainable or to fail.
So again, from a business perspective, moving more into sustainability could create a whole new competitive advantage for these organizations, right?
Yes, And we see empirical evidence for organizations who did the transformation that they are having a competitive advantage.
Wow, that's great news, right, Murat?
Yeah. Exactly. Because we all believe that there is before COVID that we had this situation, and after COVID, and with the current learning that can help us to build the future more and better. So, and this is actually in our hands. That's what we have. Yeah. And I want to ask maybe Alexander another last questions that I have. What are the things that take away the companies can have after this current situation of the COVID crisis?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have 4 hypotheses for that. Just writing a paper right now. I guess organizations should focus on strong values and a good common sense culture based on moral principles. They should have a great leadership. They have leadership to consider a great stakeholder management. So a really dialogue face-to-face with all relevant stakeholders. And the 4th aspect to be successful after the crisis are sustainable business models. So we have 4 enablers. Let me talk in business excellence language. You need a good stakeholder management. You need strong values on moral values and a good culture. You need a good leadership because you have to make decisions right now. You cannot think about what is going on in 10 years because you have now to change your strategies. You have now to adapt your products for beyond crisis. So you need strong leaders bringing the people and the partners to commitment, and they need sustainable business models.
Isn't that a fantastic summary of the discussion, Murat, that we've just had? Yeah, and again, as we see, it comes back to people. It comes back to leaders. Values have a much stronger impact as they had in the past, and it's all good news, I think. Right? I mean, there are so many people who talk about all the crisis and the results of the crisis, catastrophes, business problems whatsoever. But these are all words of hope. And yes, we can do it, and we can change the world if we just want more, right?
Exactly. Hope is the most important things in our life. Hope can bring us for the better future. So,
and now we have words to substantiate hope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Would you like to add another things on the topic of sustainability or in general, Alexander, before we closing our session?
Well, before we closing, we have to answer my question. Where do you want to spend your holidays? Of course, in mine holidays. Do you want to go to Tikopia or to the Easter Islands? What's your guess? What's your choice?
I will give the words to Christian, as he's expert on the world, that is traveling around the world.
Well, I'm traveling around the world, but for business, and right now I have a problem, of course, as you can imagine. So right now I'm trying to transform my consulting tools into online tools that I can provide via online platforms. But yes, I've already made a decision with my family. We will not go into other countries for this summer vacations. We will probably just spend a few days not far away from home in a nice area where you can walk and use your bikes and enjoy nature and local things and goods. Okay, that is a direct consequence, I think, that we've taken as a family from this crisis. And you, Murat? You live in Brussels, right? In a big town. I live in a smaller town.
Yes, I live in Brussels, and I'm in a new house with a garden now. First time that I have a house with a garden, and I discover the nature now more and more in every day in the garden that work. How that we have a small vegetable garden, also that is the plants that we are planting now. So I think that it really brings us to see the world in a different way, that which we have not done before. And again, is linked to hope. We will see the different way, and I hope that we will see completely different the world with the way of also sustainable development goals also.
So that's just about, Alexander.
Is this then Tikopia or the Easter Islands? What would be your favorite?
I would go to Eastern Island, yeah.
Eastern Island, okay. Yes. So, but I would recommend you really both to visit Tikopia, because the society of Tikopia is a very sustainable society based on sustainable principles, and they have a long tradition over more than 1,000 years, and they live with nature, as you mentioned, yes, right now. And the Easter Islands, you don't find any society on that island anymore, because they were not as sustainable as the Tikopians, and you just find some stone heads. So this is the great message for sustainability. If we don't change our mindset, what will be at the end? It will be stones, or we have a good island like Tikopia. So paradise on earth.
Wonderful words and a great vision, Murat, right?
Exactly. So I give this answer maybe on purpose to give the conclusion on you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Christian, would you like to add another word?
No, that's fine. I think we have approached the end of this discussion, and I think it was fantastic insights into this topic of sustainability. And again, the bottom line, I think, of what we heard: yes, we can make a change. We can make that happen. We just need to try, and there's lots of reasons to do it.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Alexander, Christian, for
Thank you for the invitation. Hope you enjoyed.
Thank you, of course. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Next time.